season of Two Guys, Same Person. Podcast, gotta get this all set up. I'll put my headphones on.
Hi, Ryan. I missed you. You gonna be okay?
How long have you been in there? Why are you in the dark?
I was waiting for you. I got here early. I can't believe it's a new season. We get to talk about our music video today. You think I wouldn't be here on time?
Such a dick.
Yeah, well, it's two guys, same person, so you are what you are. Yeah. Well, we are getting started. Let's go. We got to talk to Carissa, the director of the A.K.A. Ryan music video.
Yep.
These Are My Friends, coming out September 20th. Hell yeah. New theme song. Kick it off.
Getting started. Getting started. Let's do it.
So, hi, Carissa. Hi, welcome to the podcast. Excellent. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we just went through what we went through. So, for those who don't know, I moved to Chicago and went to Columbia College downtown, and that's where I met our guest today, Carissa. She was in the film department where I did music, but we met through mutual friends. So, that's kind of where I wanted to start. We met through somebody who worked on this music video with us, but what brought you to Columbia specifically before we had a chance to meet?
Yeah, totally. So I have just always been interested in film. When I was younger, very cliche filmmaker story, I feel like, where I just always had a video camera in my hand, was always filming with friends, and eventually we all grew up, everyone kind of grew out of it. I didn't. And thankfully, I was fortunate enough to go to a high school that had like a film television production class. Yeah. And at the time, I sort of thought I wanted to be an actress. Like I was like, no, I want to be in front of the camera. Like I'm a star. But like very specifically, like movie actress. So like I always just had an interest in movies and loved movies, but I didn't realize, the actors are what you see when you're a kid. So you kind of think like they do all the work.
Right.
And then you don't realize like how much else goes on and like how much it takes to put a movie together. Yeah. And then so once I learned the television production class I did in high school was sort of what taught me all that. And also my mom knew a lot more than I did, and I think she saw it earlier than I did. And she's the one that kind of encouraged me to take the class. And we got our first Mac computer when I was in 7th grade, and she was like, Carissa, like, you can edit, like, there's software where you can, like, edit movies on here. Yeah. So I edited my first movie, The Chain Letter Surprise. You can find it on YouTube. It's really embarrassing, but... I
will link it in the description.
Yes. There's also a chunk missing from it, because it was shot on DV tape, and I accidentally recorded over it one day with my friend. Oh, no. So it, like, cut, like, the narrative sort of, like, cuts in a weird place. Like, there's just, like, a chunk missing. Yeah. But that is, like, the movies of that era. I feel like it's very of its era, like, early 2000s. But yeah, it's about a killer chain letter. So that was, like, I guess my first movie. And then, yeah, I edited that. Like, I wrote the script and, directed it and produced it and was in it with my cousins and my sister. And then I edited it in iMovie, and that I think I was like, okay, like, this is really cool. Like, I really like doing this. And then, yeah, I think the television production class I did in high school really solidified it for me. Yeah. Like, okay, now this is what I want to, like, study in college. And I think my TV teacher, Mr. G, shout out to Mr. G, I think he went to Columbia for, like, broadcast journalism. Okay. So I think that's how I knew about the school. And, like, I think it's a popular Chicago art school. Totally. So I think I just knew about it. It's something I feel like I just knew, I saw about, and then I went to an open house, and where I grew up, like, in Naperville, I never really, like, felt like I belonged there. Like, I was kind of a weird, creative, like, artsy theater kid. And when I went to Columbia, the open house, it was, I think, at, like, either the Chicago Theater or probably, like, the Auditorium Theater. Which is where, like, we also graduated. But I just remember, like, walking in and there just being these like tall giant rainbow monsters outside like welcoming you, and I was like, I need to go here. Yeah. This is where I belong.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's the story.
So that brings you to college, and then obviously you do the college thing, student films, meet this person, that person. That's kind of how we met Emily Madigan, who just did basically everything that we needed her to do this entire weekend. So many.
She did everything.
We will get into the many hats everybody was wearing, but she was kind of like a roommate here first before I really had met that entire circle. But I think we all connect through. I think Kenna is the main, right? I believe introduction to like this house and the friend group and the mixing of the camera departments and the music and Sherman, you, Madigan, Kenna, this house, which we've had for at least 10 years, has been kind of that coalescing. The music video that we just shot for These Were My Friends this is literally the house where that was happening to us. Yeah. So it was cool. I guess that's a decent segue. So you came back. So you graduated 2018?
2015.
2015.
Well, technically 2014. Like I graduated a semester.
Wow.
In, like December.
Yeah.
But I didn't walk until like May 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to LA. Was it right away?
Yeah, pretty much immediately after. We finished classes in like December, and then you have like a month break, and so within that month, like by the end of January, I think it was like my like LA anniversary is like the 28th, because that I drove, so it's like from the 26th to I left like on the 26th. I got there on the 28th of January 2015.
Where'd you sleep? Just hotels anywhere?
Yeah. And my mom came out with me. She drove out there with me. So yeah,
Still
we
cool.
got like a couple hotels along the way. And then my first month in LA, I spent in Airbnb. Back in the days, like before, like technically it was somebody was renting and then they were like on Airbnb, which I think now they have rules against that.
How to own and whatever. Yeah.
But at that time, I moved out there and we stayed in this little Airbnb. Filled of weed, like the like guy that we were, paying or whatever. He would just smoke weed all the time, and so it was like, this just smells like college.
Yeah,
like, nothing's really changed. And it was also just like far away. It was in Santa Monica, so like in LA, that's like on the west side.
Yep.
And me coming from Chicago, it's like, it takes a minute to like drive a mile. Like that's sort of my like
totally internal clock for travel.
And so initially when like me and some of the like girls I knew that I kind of moved out with, like we were like going to stay or going to try to find an apartment like there was one in like Brentwood, which like now that I live there, I'm like, oh my god, that is so far away. But it was like, this is like 11 miles from like where sort of all the studios are and where like the heart of kind of Hollywood is. And so it's like, that'll take like 11 minutes, and it can take upwards of like 2 hours. It's insane. But anyway, I went on a tangent. I don't know how we got here.
I love it.
We're here.
So you ended up in LA. Because I noticed that kind of happens with Columbia, and maybe just Chicago in general. You do some school here, you get your taste of an actual big time city with actual productions that roll through town, and then either you stay or you go New York or LA. You go to one of the other two options. Did you go out there? Was it the Hollywood thing? Did you know somebody already? Was it because, hey, everybody's talking about LA. This is literally what I came to do. Let's go where it's happening. And then was it just Zillow, looking for an apartment, going all by yourself again? You know what I mean? How did it all work out?
Yeah, so Columbia was really great. And this is another thing that drew me to the school, too, is that they have a semester in LA program.
Yeah.
So you can take classes out there, and a lot of people do it their last semester, so then they can just like transition to moving out there. Since I didn't end up needing the credits, I ended up not doing it, so then I could just put the money into savings.
Yep, smart.
And
very nice.
Yeah, essentially, but the good thing about that is I knew a lot of people, and like the girls I first kind of moved out with were doing the program, so that's like how I knew some people moving out. But I feel like that's what brings a lot of like Columbia kids to LA is like that program.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like I just always knew I wanted to be there. That's where the industry is.
Yep.
And I remember, like, the only time I had ever been before I moved was when I was, like, 16, and my family and I, like, went on a vacation there. We did every single studio tour.
Wow.
And then I remember being, like, on the back lot at Warner Brothers, which is where I ended up working for, like, 10 years. And I ended up, like, my first job was essentially a tour guide, so it was, like, very full circle at the end. But I remember, like, being on the back lot, being on Hennessy Street, and just walking around, like, with our tour guide and, like, looking at everything and just being like, this is where I want to be. Like, this is where I need to end up. And so that, I always, like, kind of had that in my head. And
it was always the plan.
Yeah, always
cool.
The plan.
So, do you go out there and it's pretty immediate? You start working, or are you kind of like, all right, shit, what do I do now? I'm here. Because I kind of had that moment. Thankfully, Columbia was starting up, but all I had was college classes. I was like, I don't know anybody. This is a big move. So you go out there. Did you have something lined up, or did you get the apartment and then you go, all right, let's figure this out?
Yeah, I did not have anything lined up.
Yeah.
I tried to find an internship and a job, like, a little bit before I moved out. But I found it was just hard. Like, it's so competitive. They can have someone start tomorrow rather than, like, wait a week.
Already here. Move.
And drive across the country. And so, yeah, I tried to just try, and it didn't work out. So I was like, well, if I don't move now, like, if I keep waiting and putting it off, I'm never going to do it. So I just need to go. And, yeah, I drove out. No plan, no job. You know, nothing other than that. Airbnb.
And a degree.
Yeah, and a degree.
Let's be fair. You worked hard.
Yeah, I had a degree. That's nice. So, yeah, and I then, you know, started immediately looking for jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like when I first moved, it really hit me because I don't think I realized I don't know if you experienced this too when you moved here, but like, I don't think I realized the gravity of, like, moving across the country. Like,
oh yeah,
it didn't hit me, like, until the kind of closer we got to California, the more, like, anxious and, like,
how could anybody get out to me? There's no support network. Anyone and everyone I've ever loved is gone.
Friends. Yeah, it was like the people that I knew I didn't know super well.
Yep.
So,
days versus hours away. Like,
yeah.
You can complain about, God, it's going to take 2 hours to go 11 miles. You drove from Chicago to LA. That's traffic. That's travel time. When it takes 4 days or whatever, so yeah, it can be isolating and scary. And that genuinely is why I ended up, or why, I guess why humans end up creating their own little pods, their own, you know, these found families. The music video we just did is a bit more college, a bit more Midwest college experience in America, but it is still the same story of, like, I don't have anybody, but I need people. We are obviously social creatures, so we glued together that way. I'm curious now, without fishing for compliments, why my song, what happened? I graduated in 18, so we crossed, like, you were on your way out, I was on my way in.
Yeah.
The song, I think I write good music, but again, I don't think I'm, you know, Blink 182 Coachella headliner yet. And you reached out. You were like, hey, I know it's been a million years, but I really like this song. I'd love to do a music video. Obviously, I would say yes, because that's incredibly cool. Why? Why this one? Why my song? Why the effort of coming back to Chicago where you just worked hard to leave? What started this whole thing for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Chicago will always be home for me.
Always.
Because I grew up in the suburbs in Naperville, and then I spent, obviously, college here.
Yeah.
And I do come back frequently to see my parents and
fair.
See friends.
Okay, cool.
But, yes, so this song, I remember I came back and I visited Emily Madigan, and she was telling me about your Yardapalooza, and she played me the song off the album, and I just, like, instantly fell in love with it. I think it just really does a good job of capturing the found family that we were talking about, and it has a very, like, Chicago feel to it, which I love, and just, like, that time in your life where your friends are your family. And I think that's so relatable in so many ways and so many stages of life. And, like, yeah, the video is, like, very specific to college, but I hope that people can relate to it in other ways.
Oh, totally.
Like, even when I moved to LA, like, that happened for me. Like, I had to start over and, like, build my friend group, and thankfully I was able to do that. So I feel like at least when I was directing it and as I was thinking through it, like, I thought of sort of all of those moments in my life where I had to, like find new friends, and I think that can happen at any stage, no matter how old you are. You could, move when you're like in your 40s and maybe have to have that same experience. Like, so I hope it can like be relatable in many ways, but yeah, that was what drew me to it. And just like the specificity of it too, I really liked, and it just like reminded me of sort of all of us hanging out in college, and like the Big Easy, obviously this house has so much
history, like
heart to it. And it just like, I love when you can connect a place to people, because I also think that's such a big part of friendship and of, I'm a nostalgic bitch, so like, I live for that. Like, I get so connected to places and to people and to smells and like sound. Like, there are certain things that are just, that just like can take you back to a place, and that's what your song did for me immediately when I heard it. And that was like, she played that for me a couple of years ago. It was like, I was going to say,
this has been, it was my first the reason that it even exists was because I had friends who were like, we love your music, finish a song or we're done listening. And I'm like, don't say that to me. I've been relying on you guys for 30 years to tell me that it's good, and then I can go back to my normal life. So then I had set up this Yardapalooza thing. That'll be its own episode coming up, but essentially it was just this festival that I invited people to, and I didn't have any music. And here they come. And they bought tickets, they're coming. So then I was like, there's nothing like a good fire, you know what I mean, to get your engine going. So I knew people were coming, so I was racking my brain. What am I thinking about? And that album has a few different styles on it, but this one came out in a night. It just made sense. Sometimes as a creative, you'll find that whatever your medium is, you might accidentally have something just fall out of you. A perfect song, a cool idea, an entire script. Somebody just, Count of Monte Cristo. I'm going to write that right now. And I have 10, you know what I mean? Whatever. So it's funny that the one that just kind of fell out and it seemed to roll out really easily was the one that grabbed your attention. Sonically, I like that you could, as a film, and we didn't talk about it a lot, what the idea was. You showed me your treatment, and I wanted, as a creative, to kind of back off and be like, let's see what happens here. I don't know how to act on a set other than kind. I don't know when to pitch in an idea or just, hey, shut up, be pretty on camera. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was cool to learn. I definitely trusted you with the treatment that you sent. No, I don't want to skip my question. Sonically speaking, I think you did a great job connecting not just the story elements, but the sound of the song to college. The Weezer essence in there, the early 2000s, kind of that rock revolution that I definitely lived through, and you will absolutely hear in all of my music forever. I loved it. It saved my life. Is that your kind of music in general? Are you listening to that, or are you like a Mountain Goats First Aid Kit singer-songwriter acoustic? Are you into hard techno, big old trap rap? What are you into?
Yeah, I mean, I like a little of everything. I mean, I definitely like pop. I like indie pop. I feel like folk is probably like, if we're looking at my Spotify, like Wrapped, like usually folk is like a top genre for me, and like pop or like indie pop is usually up there. And also a new genre I recently learned about is Stomp and Holler, which is sort of like an upbeat.
I love that.
And like kind of country, and so that also is like usually a top genre for me too, like the Lumineers or like Judah and the Lion, 100%. Those types. But yeah, I think I also, have had an Avril Lavigne phase.
Totally.
And so there's
that early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s sound. And I love rock. Like I'm just like, I like good music.
I get it for sure. Yeah. Most people do generally like whatever. But then, I mean, I also love that screamy death metal. You can't hear it, what anybody's saying, but like once or twice, right? Yeah. Whereas I also love Bob Dylan. So you can have everything, but I would prefer, if you gave me the options, Bob Dylan, who I can understand, versus like this, which also fits when you're fighting a, skeleton army. They all have their own place. So that's okay. So you're, the 1975, the Lumineers, Dylan, and then, so you found this, you decided, so why make it real versus, I have this really cool idea. I would love to do that. Bye. Versus, hey, Ryan, let's do this for real. Yeah. Why the push to reach out other than just, this is a cool idea. Hey, if you ever have an idea, here's a music video you could do versus let's really do the work.
Well, I'm very much a
Yeah.
And I love to make things.
Makes sense. You move. Yeah, I'm going to LA. Bye.
Yeah,
and then you
bye-bye.
do, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it's like when you're a filmmaker and I just feel like you have to do it. Like it's visual. It's all about sort of the doing of it, especially if you want to direct. Like you just have to do it to learn it. And so I think like I love having ideas, but I love putting them into action and seeing like the end result. And so not all the time do all ideas pan out.
Of course.
But like as much as like depending on like, okay, what's practical about this? Like what can actually be done, like starting to think through the logistics. And yeah, for this, I think it was like, I just felt so strongly when Emily showed me that song. And also at that time in my life, I was going through a really rough time in LA. Like it was just a couple years after COVID. I had just gotten laid off from my job that I was at for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I had to get my thyroid removed because they thought I had thyroid cancer. Like there was a lot that was happening, and like that song sort of like brought me back to my roots almost when I heard it. And I was just like, wow, like I really need like to make this. And I hadn't made anything like once COVID happened. Like I had made little videos by myself in my room. I always write, always journal. Like I'm always creative.
Same. I have 1,000 unheard songs.
Just like it's like when you're creative, you're just always doing something. But there are like projects. I think there's something that I learned through making this again, like making something again with people, is that I missed that collaborative effort. Because
genuinely.
It's like it's great to make stuff alone, and I think it's good to have a balance. But there's something about like making things with other people that was missing from my life, like from 2020 up until now.
Yeah.
And at that time when I first heard the song and first had the idea, and like literally on the plane ride back, I think I still have it in my notes app. Like I was typing out like my idea, and I was like one day, like, and at that point too, I was just like in a, like I said, kind of a bad place in my life. I was feeling very insecure.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have the courage at that time to like text you and be like, hey, like let's do
totally
this. Like my life was just kind of a mess. And so, but I was like, one day, like I'll have the courage, or like it will be the right time, and the right vibe, and like I think it's never a waste to like get an idea out and have it.
Totally,
because
same.
you can always go back to it.
Yep.
So
nobody's seen it, nobody's read it, nobody's heard it.
And so it's like you just have it, and you can do whatever you want with it. And
you can take an essence from it. You get hired somewhere doing some movie. I've got this character, I don't know what to do with. Yo, I wrote this idea down 15 years ago. It's a line of dialogue, and it's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
That's
It's not
great advice.
It doesn't expire.
Nope.
So just have a,
You're the only one that knows it exists, and even then you might forget after a while and come back and re-inspire yourself. I've done that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
You touch on a really cool thing that I didn't get a chance to kind of ask around over the production weekend. The logistics and the people that you were working with. These people were ready to die for you. Who the hell are you? Like, because they were like, I'll do anything for Carissa. And I'm like, what? She's been gone for a decade. What are you talking about? They're just like, so they were here. They showed up. They were excellent. They donated. Whoever we're paying, I don't even know yet. Whatever. But they were here and they didn't care. You know what I mean? They did the work, and they were professional, and they were kind to my family and my space. They were even more professional than I was. Specifically Connor, who was, I think he was new, right? Kind of to the group.
Yeah.
So he was like, I offered him one of the energy drinks, and Mr. has been on film sets was like, I don't think I'm allowed to touch those. And I'm like, no rules today, bud. So it's cool to see an actual set and to know that we had a very comfortable set where people didn't feel the need to walk on eggshells. So that's kind of the vibe I generally try to portray wherever I am. We're all going to have a good time. Who were all these people? You did a really good job of wrangling and directing. We'll get into your director game here in a minute, but how? These people, are they all Columbia-ites? Are you just good with that internet game? How'd you meet everybody?
It's a mix, yeah. I think it's a lot of like using my resources and like who knows who, being like, hey, like text one person and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and then they're like, hey, I know this person or I know this person. Because I do think the internet has gotten a little out of control lately. I used to use the internet a lot more, but it's a little harder, I would say, now, because you get like sometimes you get not so great people, and you kind of want to like vet them out a little bit. That's a lesson I've learned the hard way. So yeah, it's like, it's a mix of just friends I've known forever. And I think it's like just a testament to like Chicago and like how great I feel like the people are here. Obviously you can find assholes anywhere, but I found that like,
yeah, Dad.
But yeah, it's like, there's something about Chicago and just like everyone is so like willing to help.
Yeah.
And there's such like a hard work ethic, and I'm so glad and proud that I came from this town, because I feel like it like toughened me as a filmmaker, not in like a way where it's like abuse tough. Like,
yes.
Not in that way, but it just like,
you cut your teeth.
Yes, and it's just like the work ethic, and also like shooting. There's nothing like shooting outside in freaking winter in Chicago where the wind is like knocking you over, and you're like holding onto the side of the building trying to like lock up the street as a PA.
Dude.
And like that just like really toughens you.
Yes.
So yeah, I just think like it's a testament to kind of the people that I've met out here, and then also a testament to like Columbia College Chicago kids, because that's how I met Connor actually. Was I reached out to, and Connor, for those who don't know, was our assistant director, AD, our first AD.
Shout out to Connor.
And yeah, I reached out to our old, like my old, one of my old professors, who I actually never took his class, but there's a professor,
totally,
who at Columbia teaches an assisting directing class. So like, I think Sherman probably took it, Alex Sherman, and like my friends, you know, like took the class.
Of course.
And, so I like knew him, and I knew about the class, and I was like, oh, I'm looking for an AD. I don't really know anybody. The people, like, I've reached out to some people that people recommended, they weren't available. So I emailed him, and he sent me a list. I was like, hey, like, who are like kids that are really promising in your class, and like that you would recommend that might be interested in doing like a little indie music video 2-day shoot. Yeah, he sent me a list. Connor was on there. I reached out to him. He replied right away. We had a good conversation. And I think too, it's about like kind of like interviewing and chatting before, like just so I can get a sense of the vibe, especially with an AD, like they are your backup as a director. Yeah. So like that was really important for me to like ask the right questions and like see if we had, you know, if he like ran the set the way that like I imagined, which is, as you're saying, like kind and like, hey, we're having fun. Yeah. We're all in this together. But
it's a 2-day music video. It's not Game of Thrones.
And like we're not curing cancer. Like we're just making a movie.
Right. Even those big movies, you can still have that like we're playing pretend with like budget. Please be on time.
Yeah. Like we want to be respectful. We want to work hard. But
don't throw
also,
anything at anybody. Yeah.
No, like we're not here to be divas, and like it's just like life is too short.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think just like I feel like I got really lucky with a lot of
the whole crew was excellent,
amazing people, and like Connor brought on some people too that were really great. So I think it's like finding like good department heads, and then like trusting them to like find or help fill some other positions. So yeah, I think it all worked out, and everyone was so wonderful.
It's so funny that you bring up actually reaching out to a former professor. I had a former professor, played the venue, and then we did a little podcast episode, and we just kind of talked. It's you can hear how nervous I am to talk to a former professor, but we specifically talk about having students that are obviously, you know, trying to be their friends, but in the back of your mind, that guy works really hard. Connor's always on time, whatever. Carissa reaches out. Oh my God, I haven't talked to this former student. They're asking about cool kids. Actually, Connor's really cool. So we legitimately talked about, you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be a kiss ass. You don't have to be the teacher's pet. But just portraying who you are and being reliable can get you work even if you're still in school. And now I know he just graduated. So that was a big win, but I wouldn't have cared. As long as everybody is legal in what they're doing and you're kind and you know what I mean, I like, especially with the kind of makeup as we go along budget we had. If I had $1 million to give everyone, we would have. But we still made it happen. So imagine what it would be like with that budget later on. So that's a really cool point I didn't want to miss. Second was being on set for my first time. I got to see people meet who were like Ren and Lucinda. Lucinda was our camera operator, and Ren... Director of photography, excuse me. Lucinda was our director of photography. And then Ren, I believe, was an assistant.
Yeah, so she was kind of like first AC...
Yes.
P&E camera PA.
See, look at all that lingo. You see, you already know. But they they officially met at the end. They were like, that was great working with you. My name is... I'm like, you guys have been in each other's faces for 48 hours and you're just now meeting. So it was a really cool thing to see. Is that normal on production sets? Is it very much like a Dungeons and Dragons group, like a band, get everybody together, make it work, see ya maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the project. Like, I think when you're in the industry and it's like your full-time job, you tend to work with the same people because you know them and you trust them, and the same people kind of tend to hire you. But I feel like on indie stuff, it is a little bit more of a mixed bag. I feel like no matter what, you like meet with people and you want to work with them again, but then like things change, right? Like it's
of course.
I
Director
also,
moves to LA,
exactly.
not available in Chicago anymore.
Like I had a good kind of group of, and it's just like like time passes, so you might like work with a group of people, and then people might move, they might like get out of the industry, like different things happen. So you kind of always have to be looking, and sometimes you are meeting people sort of on set and working with them for the first time, and that's why as much as you can vet, it's great, but like ultimately, and that's where sometimes I think the stress like of set and production comes in, where it's like, I haven't actually worked with these people, I've done my best to try to vet and to try to see if this will be a good fit, but at the end of the day, like, you don't know, and you're just kind of like, all right, we'll see, and that's why I'm so grateful that everything like did work out. Because sometimes like people can say they're all the right things, but then you actually get there and you're like, oh,
totally, like a hiring process. Any job.
Like any job.
You're Taco Bell. You were a great interview.
Yeah,
you were
that's
high
why
all the time.
It's a little bit of luck too.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, you try to ask all the questions and get the right vibe, and the rest is like up to the universe. But I think like that is what is so great, and it's so great when that does happen, and like when people do show up, like Ren, who just showed up like ready to go, and like when you're good at your job and you kind of know what to do, and she immediately was like, how can I help, and like, what do you need, Lucinda, and like, can I get you a water? Like,
I thought they'd been working together forever.
Yeah,
it was great.
I feel like that's how kind of it felt, like we all were very cohesive, and it's like I think that is a testament to like just everyone being so good at their job.
So with your director hat on, because you're a very kind person who likes to be friends with people, but as a director, you're not always supposed to be kind and friends. Now, you didn't have to like really stomp your foot down this weekend, but and the difference between what you thought being a director on a film set would be and the actual being the oldest adult in the room. What did you learn anything this weekend that maybe you hadn't done? Have you done big directing like this before, where the project is yours? Just tell me about being a director outside of being Carissa, because it's two different things going on at the same time.
I think I have done like directed things on this scale before. Like I did a short film in 2018 called In Flames, short thriller. And then I also did a web series that came out in 2020. That I didn't direct, but I produced and edited and starred in. So it's like I've done things on the scale before, but it's like it's been a while. It's you were saying that, and like technically since In Flames was when I directed, but I love acting because I love like learning from other directors. So like that was also what was really cool about my web series, is because like after I had done my short thriller, I was like, like now I kind of want to like be in front of the camera a little, and I want to learn from like other directors, because when you're a director and you've never acted before, I think there can sometimes be like a disconnect.
Of course.
Because, like, acting is so hard. Like there's so much you have to think about, and you're also like on camera.
Yep.
And so like that adds like a whole other layer to it. And so I think it's made me a more empathetic director by like knowing what that's like. And I minored in acting at Columbia.
Yeah.
And so I think like from that experience to now, like I've definitely learned a lot. And some things like we worked with a dog on set that I had never done before. And that,
shout out Roscoe.
Yes, shout out Roscoe. We love him. But that was like a little tricky.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh snap, like he's not
doing
all the
great.
We
Yeah, right.
To do, and like how do we do this? You know, he's not like a trained picture animal. Of
course, right.
He's like our friend's dog.
Yeah.
And so
he was shy.
Yes, he was a little shy. Like it wasn't like exactly what I imagined, and so like that was like different for me.
Yeah.
Also directing like as many kind of extras as we had, that was also like a little nerve-wracking and new for me. So I learned a lot doing those things for sure.
Now you're going to be also editing this thing together. So I'm imagining having to sync all the music, which is why there's a slate. I know that there's tricks to the audio and whatever, but you're filming. Are you filming more than you need so you can edit down to fit to a song? Are you making sure? Did you time out how much? How do I ask this? How long each individual stanza would be that you were going to film? Someone's in the bar mixing LITs. I know how long I need to film that. That's 15 seconds. Or are you like, let's film 2 minutes. We're going to use 15 seconds of it. What kind of decisions did you have to make through that process to make sure? Because you're doing a music video. The dialogue isn't right there. We're not doing it live. We played it, but still to the thing. So I'm interested in that approach and the ideas you have to do to get your shots correctly as a director and editor.
Yeah, it's totally, I think, filming more than you think you'll need or that you'll end up using. And yeah, I didn't like time anything out specifically. I think I just kind of had it in my head, and it's more like a feeling and a vibe of like, okay, you know, sort of this is the line. Or sometimes I might, like if we weren't playing the song, I would like think about the line in my head and be like, okay, will this match up?
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about music videos is a lot of times they're non-linear. So you can just like cut things here and there. You can hide a lot of like the mistakes you might make or like things that might be like shorter than you anticipated. So that
is cool.
I think that's a lot of what directing is like thinking about, let me just get options. Let me just get like things I think I'm gonna, because when you're on set, like it's crazy. Like you're on set, you're in the moment and you're like, this looks great. Or like this like didn't work out like how I thought. And then you get in the editing room and you're looking at the footage and the shot you thought was great. You're like, like I'm looking at this now and I'm like, I don't know if we have something here. And then you look at the shot you maybe thought like wasn't so great and you're like, that's awesome. Yeah. So I think it's like you're almost planning for like future you that's gonna be like looking at this later.
Especially as a director.
Yes.
You're pre-production, post-production, production.
Right. So you're just like always planning for like the next version of yourself that's gonna see it and like maybe look at it a little differently. And that's why I like to get like options and like different things, and then that way you have like more to play with when you're editing.
So then in the edit room, it will be you this time, but if it wasn't, you would just need to communicate that. Yeah. This is what I was thinking here as the director. You don't have to say as the director because they know. But you know, here's what I was thinking. We were filming this. The dog was not working. So here's an idea I have. And then, because I've heard of films being Star Wars saved in the editing room because they filmed 1 million movies and they were like, this is crazy. I didn't even think about music videos being more non-linear. Even though this one is kind of telling a story, it's not hit a mark, say a dialogue, canonical timeline storytelling. So that's a really cool thing that you can do. So that's the music video. Next. What is next? We've talked about, for this episode, if you're listening to this episode right now, it is part of our release package. We should have a teaser, something cool about the music video. So you've got some editing to do, but what's the rest of like your year look like? You got more directing projects coming up? You want to come back in a month, shoot another video? What do you want to do?
Heck yes. I don't know. Like I haven't thought about it a whole lot, to be honest. Like I'm just sort of now starting to get back into doing the things I love again. I do have a YouTube channel.
What's it called?
It's called The Well-Fed Artist.
Check it in the link below.
Yes. And that I just started, and which honestly, like that has kind of been a good like warm up for me to this because I write poetry, so there's some videos that I post are like visual poems, which are similar to music videos. Like I do kind of the whole soundtrack, like just music and sound effects and stuff, and then I like put a poem over like some visuals. And so those, and they're like a minute long. And then I do some like talking head videos because there's I don't know if you're familiar with like the starving artist myth, but it's essentially the belief that like in order for your art to be worthy, like you have to starve or you have to be like
paying your dues.
Yeah, paying your dues. And then also I feel like society as a whole just sort of thinks that like if you say you want to be an artist, that like they think you're not going to be making any money off of it, or that you're like Taylor Swift and you're, you know, making millions and
feast or famine.
Dollars.
Yeah,
and there's so much more in between. And so I think for me, I really needed to hear that. And so there are like some talking head videos on there and other ones that I have planned to just like debunk the myth and show and try to like empower other artists that there are other ways to be an artist without like making millions or like starving. Like there's just like all these other options and things that you can be. And that was something like I'm so glad I had the privilege to like go to art school and go to Columbia, and because I learned a lot of that there, but there was also, I feel like, a piece of that missing like sort of after my education, where it's like when you're at an art school you're surrounded by artists, but like when you leave you're surrounded by some artists, but like you're not in that like supportive environment as much anymore. So I sort of had to remind myself of all those things, so it's kind of a place to do that, and then maybe it'll help others in the process too.
That's really cool. Okay, so you can find Carissa through any of the links below. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being courageous and reaching out. I would have done it immediately. When you were freaking out, like, I'm not ready for this, I'd been like, hit me up in 2 years when you're ready for it. But it was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for this. I can't wait for you guys to see all the things that we did. That's it. Carissa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool.
I love it.
About 40 minutes.